Hello, everyone. Hopefully, y'all are having a good Memorial Day today. If you have any service members in your family, any friends, make sure to let them know how much you appreciate everything they do. Ultimately, that is what allows us to live the lives that we live and have the freedoms we have. And to all of those that are fallen, may you forever be in our hearts. Just make sure to let all service members know today that you very much appreciate everything they do. Hopefully everyone's having a good day today. It's been a long extended week and I haven't been on the last couple of days. I've had a lot going on and wanted to get on today because I am heading to Vegas tomorrow for the Bitcoin conference. So going to meet a lot of the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis. I think there's going to be some people from the community out there too. So looking forward to meeting everyone. If you're out in Vegas this week, definitely make sure to hit me up. Yo, what's up, man? How goes it? Man, we got a lot to cover today. Let's see. From the DePIN space, we've got some big milestones with Helium. From the broader crypto space, let's see. I've got some statements from Besant that I'm going to be covering. From the macro side of things, we've got some new developments in the EU trade negotiations, and then some big news out of China about a big nuclear breakthrough that I want to talk about as well. So a lot of stuff to get through today. Of course, I always have my quote of the day, though. And if you're here, make sure to comment. It's fun to interact with everybody. All right, here's my quote of the day. Your morning routine will determine your mood for the day. Do the things that make you feel good. Guys, the morning routine is so important. Like, I think, and I'm guilty of this some days too, and I realize it kind of challenges my day when I wake up and I go right on my phone right away. If you're like laying in bed on your phone looking at stuff for the first 20 minutes of your day, that's really not a good routine to get into. Generally, get up. Like maybe it's you want to make your espresso, your coffee, sit by the window, do some reading in the morning, go out for a walk, get some fresh air. I try to get my workouts in the morning. It sets the stage for my day. But if you've been struggling in your mornings, getting your day going, look at your morning routine. It can make a really, really big difference in your day to day. But with that said, hopefully, guys, by the way, hopefully you have some plans today. If you live near family, hopefully with your family or friends, or at least get outside. After this, I'm going to be going to a grill out with some friends, and I got to get home and get packing for tomorrow. But let's break into the DePIN news, guys. Let's take a look at the total crypto market cap, excluding Bitcoin. Here's the altcoin look right now. Obviously, we were a lot lower. We've been hovering in this $1.2 trillion range. There are a lot of people that are predicting that we could get over 2 trillion within the next month or two. A lot of people calling for DePIN summer. I think there's a really good setup for a lot of DePIN projects right now. I'm going to spend more time on the DePIN side of things today, by the way. I've got a lot to cover there. But of course, the one thing you really need to look at is Bitcoin dominance, which has been tracking upward. Bitcoin is, as we should expect. I'm going to talk more about who's investing in Bitcoin right now. But the price of Bitcoin seems to be it doesn't look like it's slowing down, basically. But you generally need to see Bitcoin dominance really drop for us to see an alt season. And we haven't seen it yet. We have not seen it yet. But if you look at Fear and Greed Index, this is the one I like. This one seems to be the most accurate. We did get all the way up to, I think, a 78 recently. But what I'm really looking for is this 90 mark. Once you get above 90, at least this market cycle, it's marked the top of the market within 2 to 3 weeks following us hitting that. So we haven't hit that threshold. The other thing to look at here is this bull market peak indicators. Not a single one out of 30 is hit. So I don't think that we've topped. But if we did, obviously all these indicators would be wrong. But the fact that 0 out of 30 have hit, I think that we do have brighter times ahead. Obviously, there's stuff going on in the macro that impacts things. We'll talk more about that. But overall, feeling pretty good about the setup that we're going into right now. The big news I want to talk about is the fact, this is a mirror with Helium. Guys, Helium hit over 1 million phones connected to the network, over 1 million daily active users. That's massive, guys. That is a huge milestone. It was not long ago that Helium was getting trashed by Forbes when all the FTX stuff was happening, and people were really soured on crypto as a whole. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's just like overvalued. There's no use case in crypto." And here we are, surpassing 1 million individual users on Helium. It's such a huge milestone, and I think it just kind of embodies what we're seeing now with DePIN, with this shift taking place. We're now looking at the data credits burn, 13,500 per day. There was a time where it was like $650 a month. So we're definitely tracking the right direction. You think about some of the things coming with AT&T, with the expansion down in Mexico. You'll only see this burn increase over time, and I think to me, things are certainly undervalued with Helium. You look at where we're at right now, price wise, just over $4. So we've been ranging, but I think we are due. And I think Helium is a really good candidate to have a major breakout when things improve in the overall market conditions. But they are leading the charge. They've been a huge pioneer in the DePIN space. Really, a lot of us, including myself, got into DePIN because of Helium. It brought a lot of new people into the crypto space, and DePIN in particular. So big fan of what they're doing. The next thing I want to talk about is Harry. He's the CEO and founder of 375 AI. And actually, I'm interviewing him next Monday. So this is a project I'm really, really excited about. And one of the things he mentions here is, garbage in, garbage out. Like, your AI modeling is only as good as the data that you feed it. And essentially, that is what 375 AI is doing. Is they're doing edge processing, edge collecting and processing of data. So to give you kind of a representation, they've got a deal set up with these billboard companies around the country, and they're setting up cameras, and they actually have NVIDIA GPUs at the edge that's processing all the data, making it actionable. And this guy, by the way, I want to tell you more about the CEO. Incredibly impressive resume, like one of the most impressive resumes of anyone I haven't interviewed him yet. I've talked to him. We had a meeting, but we're interviewing next Monday. So super excited about that. And there's a couple of different ways to participate, by the way. So you've got the edge, which is what we were just talking about. And then there's also, there's a mobile, where's it at here? Data collection, hold on. It's the Go. It's the mobile app. So you can download this app and start participating in the project for free. So go and check out the app for sure. You can start mapping hexes. With the 375 Edge, these are obviously this is really expensive hardware. So what they're starting to do, and they're going to be doing, is doing partial ownership. So you can basically invest in to get rewards, because I think it's like $50,000 for these things. So being able to slice that up to bring in kind of crowdsource, but that's what DePIN is in a way, right? Getting investment from a plethora of people. They have 50 of these things so far installed. They have 40,000 locations with a lot of traffic, right? So I think right now they've got a meaningful percentage of LA already covered, to where you can query it and ask, like, hey, how many red Ford Escapes went by this spot, and it'll spit you out an answer right away. So the analytics on this stuff is going to be absolutely insane. Now, for some of the outlying areas, like the rural areas, they're going to have a cheaper hardware option with like 2 cameras, a little bit less edge processing. They'll probably send that to the nearest node to do more processing to get some of those outlying areas. That hardware will be coming soon. It's not out yet, but I think this project has major legs. And going back to what I was saying about Harry. So this guy, he was in the Forbes 30 under 30. He was the CEO of Linksys for a couple of years. He also had he co-founded a company that was purchased in 2012 for $321 million. The guy is a rock star, man, and very, very impressive resume. Here he's Forbes 30 under 30, Rising Star of the Year award. I mean, pretty impressive. The other thing he mentioned today was that NVIDIA is announcing this new model that doesn't require the cloud, so it can do edge processing. That's exactly what this company is doing, what this project is doing, rather. So huge fan of what 375 AI is doing. Again, I'm going to be interviewing him next Monday, so be on the lookout for that. They also announced a partnership with IDO, I believe is how you pronounce it, but basically And they're bringing on sensors now from other networks as well to get more data. I said in particular, it's they're bringing on cameras. So here it is. In this case, cameras. So they have 40 new IoT devices that are coming on board from this IDO partnership. And I was looking at IDO. So I did start following them on X here. One of my boys, William, I feel like he's all over the place, but he's an ambassador for IDO. So, man, I feel like you're an ambassador for all the best project, William. So, what's on the grill today? Franz here. I think we're doing burgers, brats, probably some hot dogs. I'm hopping over to a rooftop over here in Chicago. Yeah, 375 Go app. Yep, that's the one. That's the one, man. So guys, I'm really excited about that project. I think it's going to do really big things. And they're going to have data and be able to process in ways that there's really no alternative, right? So pretty exciting stuff happening there. The other thing I want to bring up was GeoNet is deploying a lot in India. So more than 1,500 stations deployed in India right now. And India, by the way, I'll talk more about this in a minute, but just surpassed Japan as the 4th largest economy in the world. So pretty remarkable stuff happening in India right now. Obviously, you guys know about DABA network. Will there be a DABA and a GeoNet partnership at some point? I wouldn't be surprised. I think DABA needs to expand their coverage a little bit more before that happens, but I think it could happen in the future. I know both their CEOs and talk to them pretty regularly, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a collaboration at some point. But looking at their console map, man, over 17,600 miners on the network today. And if we go over to India, you'll see certainly they are expanding quite a bit. But it's not just India, guys. You got Australia. You've got, let's see, where else we got? You got Africa. You got South. I mean, GeoNet's everywhere, y'all. Everywhere. It's amazing, really. In fact, it tells you right here, 145 countries with coverage, and the token burns continue to move upwards. The number of miners, I mean, they're just doing everything right. And I think GeoNet is personally severely undervalued right now. It did drop quite a bit over the last couple of days. I think we're sitting around 18 cents, 19 cents right now. Here we go. This is where you can look for token burns, by the way, with them. They make it very, very easy to find. You go to Polygon Scan. I was having a little trouble loading this earlier, but there is a wallet. It's like the 13th holder right now. It says dead in the wallet address, but that's basically their burn wallet where they send. Here it is right here. So yeah, number 12 wallet now. So this one right here is where you can see how many tokens have been burned. So coming up on 13.9 million. So that's roughly almost 1.4 of their total supply is burned out of the supply forever. So something to certainly keep an eye on. They have a token. Their tokenomics are a little bit different than a lot of other projects. Most they'll burn and put them back into circulation. GeoNet is really, they just burn them. So we'll see in the longer term what type of impact that has on the price of the GOD token. But at 19 cents, man, definitely think it is an undervalued project for everything they're doing. And it is one of my largest, not my largest, holding out of my DePIN holdings at least. WeatherXM, so there's a lot of news about them doing their targeted deployments. They are now looking at Latin America. So Colombia, Venezuela, Jamaica, pretty cool stuff. They continue to expand. WeatherXM's been around a long time. I think, they kind of fell under the radar for a little bit, but they've been making some serious moves over the last 6 months or so. So really big fan of what they're doing. If we look at the console map for them, you can see great coverage in Europe and the US, obviously, but now really putting some focus into expanding down into South America there. They have South Africa pretty good coverage down there. Wow. And then obviously they started doing their deployments with DABA. So you're seeing a lot more coverage across India as well. So good stuff for WeatherXM. Currently sitting at just over a $10 million market cap, guys. Like, it's pretty wild. Pretty wild. I am a WeatherXM holder. I have 4 of their stations deployed, and I do really like what they're doing. I think they have a solid team. They had a little bit of a delay early on in getting their token launched and everything, but really like what WeatherXM is doing. I think that's another one that's a huge candidate to bounce when the market gets better. And one thing, again, I point this out a lot, is their max supply is only 100 million tokens. So when you're looking at their price, something to keep in mind, right? If this had the same supply as, say, like a Demo or a GeoNet, the token price would be 0.017. Or like HiveMapper would be 0.0017 because they have a $10 billion supply. So when you're looking at the price, you always got to look at market cap. That tells the full picture, the full story. Streamer TV. So I brought this up quite a bit. They have their decentralized TV streaming platform that's coming. And one of the things they're talking about is deep fakes. This is going to be a really big issue as AI gets better and better. Like the deep fakes and understanding whether or not they're legitimate. And by going on chain, you're gonna be able to tell exactly where the source is for any videos. So get real truth behind whether or not it's legit or a deep fake. So this is going to be a really big deal in the future for sure. You see some of the videos coming out with AI right now is insane, absolutely insane. And Streamer was voted a top 10 most popular Polygon projects. So love to see it. Flux is number one. I'm a big fan of Flux too. I go in their spaces quite a bit. I need to do a little bit more deep coverage on Flux. They've been around a long time, decentralized node network with a lot of Web 2 customers. Streamer, obviously, coming in at 9. Now, when you look at their market cap and what Streamer's doing with their decentralized streaming TV service coming along, under $18 million market cap, to me, this, again, seems like a good value buy, in my opinion. Obviously, not financial advice, but these are the times that I'm looking at these projects flying under the radar, looking at some upcoming catalysts like they have with Streamer TV, looking for prime candidates to bounce as market conditions get better. And, as long as we see money flow into alts, which I think should matter of when, not if, guys. The last thing I wanted to cover, and I haven't covered this project before. I saw this pop up and I thought it was interesting. I don't know if any of you guys know anything about Hivelo. Okay. I haven't looked into it much. From a quick glance, it looks like it could be kind of like a grass where you're sharing extra bandwidth, monetize your idle computer resources. So I don't know if it's similar or not. If you guys know, let me know. I'm going to dig in a little bit more to see, if this project's legit or not. But kind of went into their website, read a little bit about it. Their team looks good. I mean, they're doxed. They have some pretty solid team members. And the thing that really stands out to me, though, guys, when I look at this, is when you see the market cap of this project, it's under $1 million. Now, fully diluted valuation's under 8 million, but only 10% roughly is circulating. But that's pretty wild. When you get into when we do, and when it does happen, we have a bull run with some of these low cap alts, it gets really, if it's a legitimate project, it's really hard to find anything under $10 million market cap. And we're sitting under $1 million right now. Like, these are the ones that, when I found Nosana, for example, not saying this is a Nosana, but when I found Nosana, it was sitting at like a $2 million market cap. And that thing, that did a 300x, right? So like these low caps under $1 million, that's, not something you want to put like a huge percentage right into, but if you can find legit projects at that type of market cap, those are the ones that can get you crazy multiples potentially. Bob said, I've been running for 60 days. Mine's multiple coins. Okay. Interesting. So I'm going to look more into this one. And again, that market cap is super attractive. Those are the ones that it doesn't take much for that to run, right? What's up, man? Old man still can. What's up, man? Welcome to the stream. We're just going through some DePIN news. They also gave you their coin for uptime. Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna look more into that one then. Because if you look at this one like grass, and maybe it's not the same, but for just kind of glancing, I thought it looked a little bit similar. Maybe it's totally different. But grass is sitting at $580 million market cap, guys. Like, we're sitting under $1 million here. I'm not super interested in this at that market cap, but maybe I can be convinced otherwise. I would need to see what the revenue is. So I think they are generating real revenue at Grass, but still, like this type of stuff, these are the ones where I'm like, you know what, throw a small bet on there. If it does, a 20x, 30x, like it's not too shabby, right? All right, guys. That's what I've got for the DePIN news. DePIN news. So yeah, I'll look more into that, Bob. Look more into that. How's everybody doing? You guys having a good weekend? You guys spending time with your family, getting out with your friends? Any grilling? What are you guys up to? Let's see here. We're gonna hear from Scott Bessent here. There's an interview I wanted to play, but of course, that's going to be our broader crypto news, guys. So this was an interview with Scott Bessent regarding digital assets. And I wanted to play this.
We are going big on digital assets. So Trump administration has made digital assets a priority. Past administration starved and almost made extinct a lot of these companies and pushed it offshore. So what we want to do is apply the highest U.S. regulatory and AML standards to digital assets, especially stable coins. And I've seen estimates that just over the short term, stable coins could create $2 trillion of demand for U.S. Treasuries and Treasury bills. To put that in context, the number is probably about 300 billion right now.
Guys, that's a big deal. And I talk about this a lot, right? Where stable coins are going to create demand for treasuries. That's a big thing right now with our 10-year or 30-year increasing. We need demand. The more demand, the more buying of those treasuries that will drive down the yield. The less demand, the more that yield goes up. And that's a big problem for us for a lot of different reasons. I've talked about it a lot, but just to name a couple, we have $9.2 trillion of debt that's maturing. So the interest we pay on that debt moving forward is really dependent on those rates, but also the lending, right? When it comes to the real estate market, if you want mortgage rates to get down, we need more demand on treasuries to push those rates down. For businesses to get business loans and expand, and for us to be able to hire more people, like all of it's interconnected. We need more demand on treasuries. There's another thing I've talked about a lot. I'm going to play later in the show from Bessent as well on other ways that we're creating demand for treasuries. One that I've been predicting for a while that seems to be coming to fruition. But what else we got? What else we got here? MicroStrategy. Let me pull this up. MicroStrategy announced that they bought another 4,020 Bitcoin. Yeesh. They are now holders of 580,000. This press release just came out today, guys. Big purchases from MicroStrategy. They continue. It looks like there's no end in sight there. Someone, let me pull this up real quick. Nadix. Okay. I'm a Hive Mapper guy, right? So nothing against Nadix. My one issue with Nadix has been the thought of using your phone to collect, and that was a problem that I had with Hive Mapper. Okay, and the price of Nadix, I can pull it up, but I think for either of those projects to succeed, not to get sidetracked here, but for either of those projects to succeed, you need to be fully passive. And that's why the B, I'm like, okay, Ariel and I talked about that very early on with Hive Mapper, as I was like, you guys need to make this passive because if you don't, I don't think you're going to make it through a bear market. I believe that is the case. Now with Nadix, I believe you still have to physically set up your phone to collect. I think they need to get away from that. Now I know they also have some hardware you can plug into Teslas to collect data. From my understanding and talking to some people, they've had some major issues with uploading the data because there's a ton of data that's collected. So some growing pains there for sure. So not to say that like Nadix can't do well. It certainly can. I think there's space for both Hive Mapper and Nadix to do well. But for me, my bet is on Hive Mapper. I think they've made the hardware changes that are necessary to be fully passive. They already have customer announcements like with Lyft. They've gone through a lot of the growing pains that a lot of these other projects are about to embark on, right? And because they've been around for 3 years now. So I just think like with Natix, yeah, they can do well, but I think they've got some things to work through that Hive members already gotten through, in my opinion. But that's my take on it. Okay, so MicroStrategy is buying. BlackRock is buying another $430 million. You have this report. So this DDC Enterprise. This is a Hong Kong-based heat and eat meal seller. And they're like, hey, we're going to be buying 5,000 Bitcoin over the next 3 years. They just bought 21. They're buying another 79 in the coming days. And their plan is to acquire 5,000 Bitcoin and 500 by the end of this year. Guys, I bring these up because these are just like normal businesses. Obviously, this is New York listed DDC, but still, like, we're going to see more and more of these companies that are buying Bitcoin. And I think as we see, especially some of these publicly traded companies, as we see them release their financial statements and we see their holdings, that's where we're going to learn about a lot of this stuff. But the buying is taking place. And I think it will get to a point, we're not there yet, but I think it will get to a point where it's almost looked at as reckless if you don't hold at least a little bit of Bitcoin as a publicly traded business. Now, again, I don't think we're there yet. We see like Amazon, some of these bigger companies are looking at it, and the board is basically shutting it down so far, saying, hey, it's too volatile. I think that we will see that change, and we are seeing businesses get on board, and this is a prime example of that. Another report here that Pakistan is allocating 2,000 megawatts of power to Bitcoin mining and AI data centers. Because the countries, not just businesses, but countries are accumulating. They have been for some time. And of course, they haven't been super vocal about it necessarily because I think they want to buy before the price goes up. If every country came out and announced like, hey, yeah, we're stockpiling Bitcoin right now, what do you think the price would do? And it would really make it difficult for them to accumulate. But it does bring up a good question. This is something I've been bringing up quite a bit recently is, okay, ETFs and companies now control over 10% of the Bitcoin supply. And that does bring up a big question. I think we're going to see more and more discussion around this are we seeing too much centralization? And I think we're at risk of this. And one of the worst things, with this big washout that recently happened, is that a lot of retail sold their Bitcoin. We saw the price drop, and guess what? The big accounts, the big money was accumulating, buying it up. Smart money was accumulating, and that's what you got to pay attention to. And when in doubt, zoom out, right? But as we're seeing now, like Bitcoin's price, even after all the turbulence, all the kind of bad news we saw regarding the tariffs escalating, re-escalating everything, we were just at 110,000 this morning, y'all. And it seems like no one's even that excited. Which makes me more excited. We're not in this like hyper euphoric state while we're sitting at all-time highs. Like, what does that tell you? Well, retail probably hasn't come in at this point. And if you look at the global liquidity, which has been 80% correlated over the last year, we could have a long way to go potentially, right? It depends on what happens with the trade stuff, but it seems like, I'll talk about this more in a minute. It seems like things are de-escalating for now, but I do believe we have a long way to go. And we're already at the point where a lot of people are priced out of having a full Bitcoin. When people are flooding the markets, like we saw with FTX, that was the time to buy, right? When the market's super red. But I still think we're going much higher in the future. Like DCA is the name of the game. You don't have to, perfectly be able to, time the market that way. But you see where we're at now. I mean, there's always going to be a time where someone's like, oh, it's too expensive. I should have gotten in at that price. I mean, what happens when we get up to 150,000? They're going to say, oh, well, that's too expensive. I'll wait till it's 120,000. It's always going to be like that. So to me, I just DCA. All right, looking outside of Bitcoin, Ethereum. Everyone thought Ethereum was dead. And, I've been talking about this. I talked about it on our X Space where I was like, hey, I could see Ethereum outperforming on a percentage gain standpoint, outperforming Solana the rest of this market cycle because Ethereum, everyone's just so negative on it, but the institutional money is there, with the L2s especially. But look at the money flowing into Ethereum right now versus the other chains. So if you were buying Ethereum down at like 1,600, good for you. 1,700, good for you. That's the time again, like when the market's all saying one thing, and you see indicators leading to a different direction. If you're right, you do quite well if you go against the grain. I talked a little bit about this the other day, but it was about Dubai tokenizing their real estate. I wanted to get into a couple of the details here. They're expecting that their tokenized real estate market could be 16 billion by 2033, representing 7% of their total property transactions. This is all being done on XRP, by the way, on the XRP blockchain. And the CEO here said that they've been working on this project for some time. And I bring this up because there's a lot of things that have been worked on for some time. These are the announcements come after a lot of work is being done. So just think about all the tokenizing, all the things that are being worked on behind the scenes right now that we're going to see come to fruition here over the next year or so. It's pretty exciting, really. And I do think that, we're seeing XRP, especially the last week, have a lot of catalysts come into play, y'all. Even Charles Hockinson was talking about how he hopes that XRP is the one that ends up buying USDC. There's a big move right now where like everyone expects Coinbase is going to be acquiring USDC Circle. And I think a lot of people are thinking that's a little bit too much power in the hands of Coinbase, who is very close with our government. So maybe we need to push USDC Circle to a different entity. But XRP overall, very bullish news over the last week or so. I wouldn't be surprised to see a breakout at some point soon. Another news. Sam Bankman Fried. If you remember who Sam, of course you remember who Sam is. He was responsible for FTX Exchange, Alameda Research, and one of the biggest fallouts we've seen in crypto history. Now, he was part of it. There are other things that obviously took place. It just kind of was a lot all at once. But it looks like he's getting his term reduced due to, what was it, good conduct time. And I was like reading into this a little bit. By the way, he's had a lot with his time in jail. He spent time with Diddy. They're in the same dorm style of room. He did an interview with Tucker Carlson. But getting back to the BOP, so they're estimating that he'll be released now on December 14th, 2044. And said, while they don't comment on specific inmates' conditions of confinement, basically they can qualify for up to 54 days for each year of their sentence, potentially, for a reduction of their sentence. The other thing is they can get credit for times they're incarcerated before their date of sentencing. So he was in there about 6 months before he was sentenced. Oh, and this is his girlfriend. Oh, yeah. So you'll remember his girlfriend. She got sentenced as well. She squealed on him quite a bit, but she might be out in May of 2026. So in a year from now, she's going to be already out of jail. That's crazy. But anyway, some news on Sam Bankman. Seems like he's in there. I think he's like teaching crypto to inmates and stuff. So I'm sure he's making the best use of his time in prison. The other thing that came out, Hasbulla. So if you know this guy, you see him in the little videos. Apparently, he scammed his fans through a $3.5 million pre-sale. So of course, you're always going to have some bad actors. But anyway, that's what I got in the broader crypto news. What did you say here? He said both Nadix and Hive member. Yeah, I mean, you might as well double down. You can make some extra money. So Nadix, like I said, I think he could do well. I think they got to fix before I'm sold on them, like through a bear market. I think they need to fix some things and make it more passive. I mean, that's my only feedback, really. I think their team's legit. So nothing against Nadix. Anyway. Yeah. I don't know if it's true. That's just a report I saw this morning. It was like an hour ago. I don't know. He said Hasbulla with 3 question marks. Yeah. So I don't know. I see videos of that guy all the time. But apparently, if it's true, he ripped off some of his fans. I don't know. There's always people out there grifting, right? Which actually does bring me to, which he said he's looking into it. Wild, right? It's crazy stuff. It does actually bring me to, before I get into the macro news, I gotta say, like, so I was on the elevator leaving my building the other day, and I was talking to this woman, super nice woman. We run into each other from time to time, and she's like, "I'm having a horrible day." I was like, "What's going on?" It's like, "Well, I woke up and looked at the news." I was like, "What's going on in the news?" And she's like, "Well, all this vengeance stuff with Trump." And she said, "But then, and the crypto stuff." And I'm like, "Oh shit." I'm like, that's not good. There's a lot of news right now around like Trump and how he's making money off of crypto, and it's like, I reported on this article from Fortune last week where they called out that crypto has a huge image problem, a perception issue, because all the grifting going on, and I guess people don't take the industry seriously, and they use DePIN as an example of like, okay, but this is where things are actually being built, and that got me thinking, like, okay, is Trump good for crypto? Like, I think my take on it is, in the long term, I think so. I think a lot of the regulation going into place, I think opening up the door to foster the crypto industry and blockchain technology is going to be a really good thing looking downstream, further away. But I think in the short term, it could have a negative impact too, particularly with the Trump token and now the media. They say all media is good media. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but the news right now, there's a lot of people that are really looking poorly at crypto right now because of everything they're talking about with Trump. Now, that's obviously a very small percentage of what's happening in the crypto space. There's a lot of real stuff happening, but for people that know nothing about crypto, that's all they know, right? They know the media is telling them. So it got me thinking, the headwind we might be facing that we weren't expecting to be facing. All right. With that said, let's get into the macro news. If y'all remember, we had some big news with Trump coming out and saying, "Hey, we're putting 50% tariffs on the EU, and I'm not looking for a deal." Well, EU came out and said, "Hey, we had a good call with Donald Trump, President Trump," and said, "We share the world's most consequential and close trade relationship. We are ready to advance talks swiftly and decisively. To reach a good deal, we would need the time until July 9th. And sure enough, Trump did come out and he did delay things until July 9th. There's some rumors coming out now that they might be offering a 0-for-0 tariff to completely open up trade. I don't think that's verified yet, but would be certainly interesting. And obviously the markets, because of this move to delay until July 9th, markets are seeing a nice rebound because of that. So certainly good news. The other thing I'll bring up here is this, the big, beautiful bill that got passed. Senator Johnson says that he believes he has enough votes to hold it up. And the big thing that the people are really concerned about with this is that it's not serious enough about reducing spending and reducing the deficit. And they're calling for deeper cuts, basically. And repeatedly, they've called for to get back to pre-pandemic spending levels. Right now, the CBO estimate is that it will add about $3.8 trillion to our deficit. Now you have people on the other side, Besson included, that are saying that the CBO does not do dynamic scoring. So they're basically arguing that the way they look at the spending and the outcome of spending from some of these bills is not accurate. If you watch the interview with Besson and Tucker, this is nothing new. He actually brought this up like 2 months ago in that interview about how the CBO is BS, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of pushing back and forth, but it does sound like they might be voting this thing down at the Senate. So we'll have to wait and see what comes of that. Certainly will be a big story in the news this week. The other thing I mentioned earlier is that India has now surpassed Japan as the fourth largest economy in the world, just barely. 4.187 versus 4.186 trillion. But India is growing quickly, y'all. It's they have 1.4 billion people. They're getting with Daba's moving in there. I think you're going to see a lot of manufacturing move over there. So I think India is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and they're quickly moving up the charts. Pretty crazy to look at what's going on with them passing Japan. Japan's having their own issues right now. We've talked a lot about that already, though, so no need to bring it up more. The next thing, though, I want to talk about, and we've talked about this a little bit, deregulation. Deregulation, the name of the game. We're going to hear more and more and more about that from the White House, from Bessent, from everybody. He talks about it right here, deregulation. One of the things I brought up, I need to share this as a tab. But one of the things I brought up is how can we create a demand for our treasuries? The stablecoin bill is one way, and deregulation with our banks, was the other I mentioned. And sure enough, I've been talking about this a few times recently. Sure enough, here is Scott Bessent talking about just that.
Working on Wall Street is banking regulation. Let's talk about the supplemental leverage ratio, which seems like an obscure thing off to the side, but it has been the subject of much discussion. And it does, as I understand it, relate to U.S. Treasuries and yields on U.S. Treasuries, so that if major banks held more U.S. Treasuries, it would bring yields down. You've said you're going to take more of an active role, as I understand it, with respect to some of that banking regulation. Where are we with that?
I think we are very close to moving the supplementary leverage ratio, SLR. That is moving along very quickly between the three banking regulators, the Fed, the OCC, and the FDIC. So I would think we could see something on that over the summer.
Over the summer. And knowing the markets as you do, would you anticipate that might have a significant material effect on Treasury yields?
Well, I think it could, because banks are being penalized for holding treasuries. There's a large supplementary leverage charge. So I think for holding the risk-free asset, we can reduce that. And I've seen estimates that it could bring yields down by tens of basis points. Certainly during the COVID crisis, it was the temporarily taken off, and it had a big effect.
Boom. Okay, so again, we talked about this. You all knew this. I mean, I've talked about it a few times recently, but this SLR, they did this back during COVID, where they removed, basically, they stopped penalizing banks for holding treasuries. And what he's saying here, because it's all about the bond market, guys, the bond market pushing those yields down. He even said right here, like it could push it down, tens of basis points by making this move. So fully expect deregulation across all industries, but particularly in our banking industry, to increase demand for our treasuries, push yields down. Between that and the Stablecoin Bill Act, I think we're going to see some newfound demand for treasuries, which we desperately need. So again, be on the lookout and get ready. That's going to be the buzzword for the next, probably throughout the summer, deregulation. Bill Clinton did the same thing. I know I bring this up. Bill Clinton did the same thing, where they started deregulating everything to grow the private sector. And I think that's the move. That's what they're trying to do, is really promote growth in the private sector, which has been struggling, guys. Like under Biden's last year in office, we had a million less full-time jobs from fall of 23 into fall of 24. A lot of that was masked by the gig economy. People working Uber and Lyft jobs where they download an app and take up employment, and also government. They added a ton of government jobs. So I think if we can see things reverse in the private sector, that'd be huge. Deregulation is going to be a big part of that. So get ready for it. The next thing we'll talk about real quick is that apparently this, Klarna. So Klarna showed this really big loss. So there's over $100 million for Q1 alone. Apparently they're doing a similar thing to what they did in the mortgage industry back in 2008, where they're just packaging these bad loans they're giving people into different tranches, if you will. They're doing the same thing with Klarna's risk pro. So obviously, Klarna is not nearly as big as our real estate market, but it is something that's going to blow up eventually, and something to keep an eye on. This lending, it's been, and the reason I really bring it up is it's been propping up our consumer spending, guys. Like, people are using, payment systems through Klarna that probably have garbage credit to buy their freaking Chipotle, to buy food delivery services, spending money they don't really have. And I think that is going to blow up and come to an end. And with that, consumer spending is probably going to take a hit. Another thing I brought up the other day is that I expect that we will see more nuclear power built in the U.S. And it looks like Trump is signing executive orders to bolster nuclear power. I think it's going to be necessary. And I'm going to bring up something with China and nuclear here at the end of the show as we get there. But yeah, I think nuclear, with the amount of energy needs we are going to have for AI, we need to build a lot more energy. We're falling behind. China has been doing a really good job. Granted, they're doing it through coal and nuclear. I do think we're going to see a comeback in nuclear in the U.S., which I wouldn't have said that a couple of years ago. I think that's where we're headed, guys. All right. Was the audio working on those videos for you guys? I just want to make sure. I hope so, because I shared the tab. It should have been. But I was watching the other day. I think someone said it wasn't coming up, so I just wanted to make sure it was. All right. We're going into the last segment of the show, guys. Appreciate you all hopping on with me. It's always fun. I know I missed the last couple of days. Let's see here. Let's get into the global news. Well, this is a little bit awkward. I don't know if you all saw this. This happened today. The French president got smacked in the face. And then he's like, oh, hey, guys. Look at that. I don't know what's going on there. But apparently his wife was not very happy with him. Not sure what's going on there. But, once the cameras are on him, he's like, hey, nothing to see here. Oh, maybe that's what they're into. I don't know. And there they are walking off. So I don't know. You'll see a lot about that, I'm sure, over the next day or two. Like, what happened there? I don't know. This is interesting. So the newest in the Harvard drama, covered this my last stream, but they're talking about taking $3 billion of grant money and putting it into trade schools. I actually would not be against that. I think trade schools are fantastic. And I think, I have a lot of buddies in New York that went into the trade schools, and they make great money. All right. We're falling behind in some industries. I must admit, we need to move faster toward innovation. Yeah. Hell yeah, man. We definitely do. I think, there's going to be so many big opportunities in blockchain and crypto, and I'm really glad that we're embracing the innovation, because it was not going that route before. And I think we would have fallen behind. I really do think that this is like the next big move. You look back at like the internet era. Now you have blockchain, you have AI. I think both are going to be massive. Trade schools are awesome. I'm going to be entering fire science program this upcoming year. Yeah, man. I'll tell you, I think you're going to see more people going into trade schools, less going into some of these public universities, where people are coming out with crazy debt, jobs that can get nowhere near the amount they need to make to pay off those student loans. It's pretty criminal, really. But yeah, trade schools are great. So I'll tell you, if they do route that money into trade schools, I think that would be a pretty popular move, actually, for most people across the country. Whether or not the media will cover it, I don't know. That's another question. This is interesting. He's talking about, let me share this here. Elon talking about the future of self-driving vehicles. Some pretty bold predictions here, but I wanted to play it. I thought this is a good watch. Here we go.
There'll be ultimately billions of humanoid robots. All cars will be self-driving.
In 10 years?
In 10 years, probably 90% of miles driven will be autonomous.
Huh. Wow, that fast.
Yeah. In 5 years, probably 50% of all miles driven will be autonomous. Goods and services will become as close to free. So it's not as though people will be wanting in terms of goods and services.
So why is that? Why are goods and services free in an AI world or close to free?
Well, you have, I don't know, call it tens of billions of robots. They will make you anything or provide any service you want for basically next to nothing. It's not that people will have a lower standard of living. They'll have actually a much higher standard of living. The challenge will be fulfillment. How do you derive fulfillment and meaning in life?
Yeah, that's so true. So what do you say? 90% of vehicles be autonomous, of driving on the roads be autonomous within 10 years, 50% within 5 years. That's pretty wild. I think they estimated like 5 years ago, anyone that was born within the last 5 years will likely never need to know how to drive a car. Like, it's pretty crazy stuff. So when they look at, they're estimating the robo taxi market, and everyone's like, well, it's this big and there's no way that they're going to hit this type of revenue. It's like, well, shoot, if 90% of the cars are like, self-driving vehicles, yeah. I mean, the markets can be massive, and they say a lot. There's gonna be a lot less car ownership. There's gonna be a lot of people that, you kind of do like a share, right, where everyone gets access to vehicles at different times, but a lot less vehicle ownership and people just kind of doing ride sharing. And then him talking about the cost of goods and services coming down, and this really does bring up the topic of universal basic income. And to his last point, finding meaning in life, because it's really interesting. I read this book. It's called Deep Work a couple months ago, and they're talking about how our jobs today just have way less fulfillment. We're sitting there, we're like answering emails, and we're not doing like real deep work in a meaningful way. Whereas like in the trades, like if you're a woods craftsman, right, and you're creating this artistic, woodwork, and you have like a very, I guess, beginning and an end to that, and you're bringing real value into the world, and it's very easy to see that value, and that's how all jobs used to be. It was a lot more clear cut, the value you're bringing. You find a lot more happiness in life. I think a lot of us are doing like these small tasks all day. We have a hard time finding meaning. And to Elon's point here, if we go to universal basic income, how are people going to find happiness? If you don't have that fulfillment, if you aren't achieving things, what do you do? Not to mention, they've already done studies where people, where they put people on universal basic income and some people that weren't, and people get really complacent and unhappy because they're not feeling fulfillment. So that is going to be a big issue in the future for sure. One that you wouldn't think of, right? And when I did my interview with Mark from Exhibits, he was talking about the same thing, that the service costs for services are going to come down to next to nothing because the labor costs won't be there. So pretty wild stuff. And some medical news. I thought this was kind of cool story. You have, can AI-powered smart glasses help spot medication errors? So comes out that I guess 20% of medication mistakes happen because they swap the wrong medication, and it maybe it's incorrectly labeled, or it's the wrong vial of an injectable drug. So what they're doing is they're basically, for these anesthesiologists, they're going to put these AI glasses on as a double check for them, to make sure that they're not mixing the drugs. They said they're generally they use 10 to 20 drugs 99% of the time. So they're going to use AI to recognize them with a second set of eyes to make sure that they don't have that swap up, which again is 20% of medical mistakes. So that's really interesting. And then they said that they can basically detect vial swap errors with 99.6% accuracy. And the other thing they said that they said there's more AI improvements coming. So hospitals spend an estimated $500 billion on administrative costs per year. That's because the hospital billing systems involve a myriad of healthcare personnel, nurses, medical coders, whose only task is to verify and convert clinical notes into billing codes. Well, now with AI, they'll be able to make sure the receipts are accurate. that they have every time they have what they should and they don't have what they shouldn't. Basically achieving 100% accuracy on billing. So another way that AI is going to have a massive impact on our medical system. So cool stuff there. I thought on some other news that's not so great. I talked about this the other day about microplastics and how they're finding them in our bodies. They found some in they had for the first time they found plastic in human ovaries. So they checked for microplastics in 18 women, and they found them in 14 of the women. This is a big deal. Actually, the bigger issue right now with fertility is men. The sperm count's been cut in half roughly over the last 30 years. They think it's microplastics. They're finding them all over the place. They're finding them in our blood. They're finding them in our brain. I think I said it down here, but they're finding microplastics everywhere. And it contains 16,000 plastic chemicals. So I think a big reason why we're seeing the heightened cancer rates is definitely because of these microplastics. We're going to find out a lot more about this in the coming years for sure. So unfortunate. That's one thing about AI though too, is that, in quantum computing, they're going to be able to run studies a lot faster. The medical breakthroughs are going to be pretty amazing in the coming years. And that brings me to the last part of the show, guys. And that has to do with energy production. As you see, China has been planning for the AI movement. They are increasing electrical production much faster than the United States. Now, part of that is coal, and I've brought this up. They just brought on new coal plants for the highest level in nearly 10 years. The book I read, one of the books I read recently, they're talking about how China has been stockpiling coal. They are getting ready for this movement. They began construction on nearly 100 gigawatts of new coal plant capacity last year, the most in nearly a decade. And then going down here, a substantial number of new plants will come online in the next 2 to 3 years, further solidifying coal's role in the power system. Obviously, this is not good for our green initiatives, right? I mean, I saw, people are going in and spray painting, artwork and stuff. And here's China building up coal plants. They're not really helping matters, are they? They're also among many nations that missed the UN deadline this week to submit a national plan to cut emissions by 2035. So China is just kind of doing their own thing out there. And I thought this was a pretty wild statistic. The report from the two clean energy groups said that China accounted for 93% of construction starts globally for coal plants last year. So they are not doing their part, guys, to say the least. So we need to hold China accountable on that shit. Like, that's crazy. Here we are, like, they want us to spend billions and billions of dollars towards green initiatives, yet China's just not doing anything about it. So that sucks. That said, this is the part I wanted to say for the end of the show. My mother actually sent me this technological breakthrough this morning. I was like, man, I haven't heard about this. So I did some fact checking, did some reading. I was like, that's a pretty big deal. One of the things I brought up is how China is increasing their nuclear capacity a lot. They're building a lot of new plants. And it's not just China. There's a lot of countries around the world that are doing so. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, Trump is looking to bring nuclear back in the U.S. But China had this big breakthrough with thorium-based nuclear energy. You know what? We're going to make this the lesson of the day. Knowledge is power, guys. Knowledge is power. But this is wild for real. So they're doing a thorium-based nuclear energy breakthrough using past U.S. work. So let's get in here. They're saying they might have just had their Sputnik moment. According to Chinese state media, a group of scientists recently managed to refuel a working thorium molten salt reactor without causing a shutdown, a feat never achieved before. Such a breakthrough could be transformative to the global energy landscape, as thorium has long been hailed as a far safer and cheaper alternative to uranium and nuclear reactors. I'm going to get into a little bit more of the details on that. But when announcing the breakthrough, they acknowledged that its project was based on previous research by U.S. researchers who pioneered molten salt reactors technology in the 1950s, but abandoned it to pursue uranium-fueled ones. So, like many things, we started the research on it. China picked it up, and seems like they've gotten across the finish line. It's not just China. We see this all the time. With a lot of CEOs, they aren't the ones that had the original idea. A lot of them take the original idea and then run with it and can execute on that idea. We see it all the time. If you ever watched the Facebook movie, for example. So I wanted to dig into the impact of this, guys. So the advantages of using thorium. So safety. You don't have the risk of catastrophic failures. It's inherently meltdown proof. So obviously that's been a big issue with prior nuclear facilities. And it also produces shorter-lived radioactive wastes compared to uranium. That's a big problem with nuclear, and a big issue people have with it generally with uranium-based nuclear is that, where do you dispose of it? And obviously, in the U.S., I think we actually had in the U.S., we had dug these containers to put our nuclear waste in, and over time they cracked. So that's a big problem, is how to deal with the nuclear waste. This would be a huge, huge improvement on compared to how nuclear works today. It also says that thorium is far more plentiful than uranium. China actually is holding the largest reserve, but they have enough that could yield 1 million tons of thorium, essentially potentially powering China for the next 60,000 years. And it's a byproduct. Thorium's a byproduct of rare earth mining. So obviously that's massive in itself. And they're doing a lot of rare earth mining. So obviously it's just a byproduct of that. So very cost effective. It says that thorium can generate up to 35 times more energy per unit than uranium via nuclear fission. And again, it's a lot more, let's see here. The reduced weaponization risk. So using uranium, obviously there's a lot more risk than creating nuclear weapons with that. So like Iran, remember they were always like, oh, we're just building this nuclear plant for energy needs. And we're like, well, yeah, how do we know that? Well, now with this type of breakthrough, you don't really have that issue, right? There's no way for them to say, well, yeah, we're using uranium. It's like, well, why are you using uranium then? So I think it'll help to stabilize some global tensions when it comes to weaponization of nuclear, and obviously the environmental impact. Again, you don't have the radioactive waste, no greenhouse gases during operation. So, guys, this would be a massive breakthrough. We'll have to see what comes of that. But big things nonetheless. I think we're gonna have a lot of energy breakthroughs, in the coming years. We certainly need it, because energy demands are only increasing, not only with AI, but as some of these emerging countries get more developed, you're going to see they're going to see a lot of energy needs, and from a global perspective. So having these breakthroughs is going to be absolutely massive. All right. That's what I got for you guys today. Some fun news. Fun news for sure. But hey, I appreciate you joining. Hopefully y'all have a wonderful Memorial Day. Again, be sure, if you have service members in your family, friends, people make sure to let them know how much you appreciate what they do every day for us to live the lives that we live, having freedom. And with that said, y'all, I appreciate you guys. I don't know. I'm going to be flying out tomorrow morning to Vegas, so I'm going to try to get on for some live streams this week. I won't have my normal setup, but we'll certainly be reporting back. And when I get back in town, I'll be back on my normal scheduling. So appreciate you guys. Cheers.